up, guys? My name is Michael, and today we're going to talk about Capture One, especially for Fuji photographers. As you might know, Lightroom is not the best choice if you like to shoot Fuji RAW files, because the sharpening in Lightroom is pretty bad, and the RAW conversion is not the way most photographers would want their files to look. So we're going to look at Capture One 11 today, and I'm going to show you its advantages. So the first thing I want to show you today is the difference in the RAW conversion. And after showing you how good the RAW conversion and sharpening in Capture One actually is on a Fuji RAW file, I will talk to you about how to use and how to migrate from Lightroom to Capture One, and where the differences are and how all the tools available in Capture One actually work. So I'm sure this video is gonna be helpful for you, and I will also give you a 10% discount code in the description if you want to switch to Capture One. Now let's go. So we're now in Capture One, and I want to go with you through some images that I shot on my US road trip. So as you can see, I am already zoomed into an image to 400%. Now I got the same image open in Lightroom right here. Now first, there is an obvious difference in the standard RAW conversion because Lightroom shows a much brighter image. But you can already see that there is more sharpening applied by default in Lightroom, so the Lightroom image looks better, but you can already see these warming effects, little worms in the image that Lightroom is so famous for. Unfortunately, you can already see them in this area, and Capture One does a much cleaner job. So I would now like to match the exposure first, so we can get a comparable result, and you can also see that the image has a slightly different color. So I'm now gonna apply sharpening in Capture One so that we can get a sense of the differences between these two programs. And now, as I'm gonna do that, I would now say the images have almost similar sharpening, and now you can see that the image in Capture One has way less noise, so it looks cleaner, and I can also go way higher in sharpening and it still will not get those worms. Let's do that right now. I'm gonna increase the sharpening. So I'm now at 600, and you can now see that the amount of detail and the sharpness is way better. Let's have a look at these scratches here. So it's now sharper than in Lightroom, and yes, I can apply more sharpening in Lightroom. Let's do that. So the default sharpening in Lightroom is not enough for me. So I will now increase the sharpening, and I will do that by first applying a mask. It's the way to go, right? We apply a mask, then we increase the amount of sharpening, and now you can really see that we get these very very nasty effects. So you see there is this these artifacts here around this edge, and we don't have that over here. So if I now would decrease the amount of sharpening and add more detail, because that's the way some people say you have to use the detail slider in Lightroom more. So I'm gonna do that, and still, I mean, it's a little bit better, but look at all these artifacts inside here. we don't have them over here in Capture One. So in my opinion, I can even increase sharpening a little more in Capture One. And whoa, I mean, we're all the way in at 400%. I know that. No matter what I do in Lightroom, I cannot get the same clarity and the same clear sharpness out of the Fuji RAW files. It's not possible. So you would have to live with those artifacts. And if you don't want to live with these artifacts, I would suggest have a look at Capture One, because it performs much better with the Fuji files. And yeah, it's just the way it is. So the images look way clearer in my opinion. And also Capture One performs much better. I mean, I'm on a 2013 MacBook Pro right here. I'm doing a screen record and it performs really fluid. So enough pixel peeping. Let's talk about the capabilities of Capture One. And I mean, a lot of people switch from Lightroom to Capture One because Lightroom is only available as a subscription, and Capture One is still available for purchase. So you can get a full license without a subscription. And I mean, that's a major benefit as well. So if you would like to try Capture One for 30 days, you can just go to the Capture One website, download it and try it. And the first thing that I would suggest you to do is go to Window, Workspace and select Migration. Now Migration is a workspace that tries to mimic the look and feel of Lightroom. And I mean, it's not possible because obviously these are two completely different programs doing sort of the same thing, but not exactly. So go to Migration. I'm sure it will help you get into Capture One and try it for your 30-day trial period. So that's what you do, and your workspace will look pretty much the same as my workspace. And let me explain to you the main elements of the Capture One workspace. Currently I have my browser on the left. I can also switch the browser to the bottom. You could do that by pressing Command Shift B, I think it is. Yes, Command Shift B will switch the browser from left to bottom. And you have the viewer, which is the main area here, which shows your image, and you have your image adjustment tools on the right. They can also be switched to the left, so it's very, very customizable, and it's way more customizable than Lightroom is. One main difference is that you don't have the distinguishing between the library and the post-production part. So the library is not there. And it's a good thing that it's not there, because actually there's no need for a library. So whenever you want, you can go to the Folders tab and go to another folder, which are right here. And if you want to do post-production, you go over there and you have your post-production. But we're going to go in detail just in a little bit. Another thing that I did to customize my experience is I assigned a shortcut to display and hide the viewer, which is just like the grid view in Lightroom, so without a big image, and again a big image and a little image browser on the side. So this is what I added to the V button. You might also put it on G, because in Lightroom it's G for grid. And in order to change keyboard shortcuts, you go to Capture One 11 menu, press the Edit Keyboard Shortcuts function, and now you could go to View and Show Hide Viewer. As you can see, I assigned it to V, And if I close it now, let me show you. This is what happens when I push the hide and show viewer function, and that's really important to get used to Capture One. At least for me, it helped me a lot. So I can adjust the size of my thumbnails. I can make them really small, can make them really big, like that. Very nice. I like to keep it around here. I can scroll through here. Of course, I can double tap an image and it will get big. I can now push the V button to get back to my grid, so I can navigate through pretty quickly. Whenever I select multiple images, let me do that, and hide and bring back the viewer, I will get both images or multiple images side by side. So let's go ahead and edit some images. Now I have this bird right here. I shot this image in San Francisco. So first thing I would want to do is straighten the image. We have the straighten tool up here. I'm just going to select it, and then I'm going to draw a line where the horizon should be. So this line should be straight, and I'm already done. Next thing, I'm going to crop. You have these little arrows next to the tools, so you can open different ratios right here. I'm going to select 2:3, and I'm going to grab the image here and scale. I can move the frame, and I can crop the image just like that. Go back to my select tool right here, and I'm done. So right now we're gonna go and edit some of the basic stuff on the image. I'm gonna go to this tab right here, which is the exposure editing tab. By default, there are a lot of tools in there. You can remove tools that you don't need, or you can add tools that you're missing. So for example, we have the folders right here, and you see I have basic exposure adjustments available in the folders tab. I could right click this and remove the tool exposure because I don't want it right in here. Or I can as well go to the editing tab, the exposure tab, right click and add the library tool right here. So right now it's on the bottom. I could also drag it way up wherever I wanted. Let's close it. I have to select the library tool and put it on top of my image editing tools. So I have the, come on, all the way up. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, there's another feature that I would like to show you right now. Now I have the library on top. Let's go ahead and take the exposure tool, for example, and drag it out. So I can now work on my image, have the exposure tool right here where I need it, and I can now put it back in here. So as you can see, it is very customizable, and that's something that I would have really wished for Lightroom as well. Lightroom is pretty good, but once you get used to these features, you don't want to go back. So you can rearrange all the tools, do it in a way that suits you, and make sure to save your own workspace once you're done with these adjustments. So you can then use it on multiple computers, or you can load it once you messed up. So just a little hint. Okay, so we have quite a lot of tools for image editing. Now let's go ahead and play with some more. What I really like is the clarity tool. Now, you know the clarity tool from Lightroom. The clarity tool in Lightroom is pretty nice, but you have to be very careful with the adjustments. What I like with the clarity tool and the structure tool in Capture One is that you can really crank them up and they don't look bad. So let's go all the way up with the clarity and go all the way up with the structure. and you can see the image gets clearer and more crispy, but it doesn't look exaggerated, so I really like that. Let's zoom in. You have a zoom function up here that you can use. You can also push Command plus or Command minus, then move around, and you see the clarity and sharpening, no, it's not sharpening, the clarity and structure doesn't look bad. There are different styles of clarity, and some of them have way more impact, like the classic one, for example. You see, it looks totally different. I like the natural. Looks best to me. Another cool thing for checking details is the loop tool. For the loop, you press the letter P on your keyboard, and then you click somewhere, and you will get a 100% magnification of that area. So that's a pretty cool thing. And the really cool thing with that is that it works in your grid view on the thumbnails as well. And by the way, you can also edit your images in thumbnail size. Let me show you that real quick. Turn down the exposure, you see it works. That's something that is also not possible in Lightroom, and I'm glad they did it that way. Let's go ahead and increase the contrast a little more. Turn down the exposure a little bit. And let's go into the styles and presets. Now, some of these come with Capture One, and some of them you can buy. Now, I'm going to show you some of my styles that I have in here. Let's go ahead and use the cinematic. And you see there are certain definitions. Some of them may be too much because I've already applied quite some editing to the images, and some might look really cool. Now these are really nice. Oh, I like this one. Let's use number 6, and let's go to a function that really separates Capture One from Lightroom, and that is layers. Now you have some tools in Lightroom that help you apply settings to small regions of your image. Now, for example, you could darken the image with the gradient tool. But Capture One gives you way more flexibility with this kind of editing. Let me show you that real quick. We're gonna go to layers. One more time, if you don't see the layers tab, you just right click, add tool, and select layers. Okay? So whenever you miss some kind of editing function, that's the way to do it. Now you can see I don't have any layers, I only have the background layer. Now let's add a layer. I can double click the name, give it a name, but I don't have to. Now you can already see one difference already is that I can select the opacity of a layer. And that's really a wonderful tool. Now let's go ahead and play with that. And by the way, I'm filming this on the X-T2 with the 35 1.4 lens. So I guess eye detection is pretty good, because people keep asking about that. Let's play with the layer tool. You can see now that every tool right here now has a little symbol. That means we're applying settings to a mask. Okay, let's do it. Let's give more clarity and more structure, and I'm gonna go to exposure, add contrast. And now you might be wondering, why is there no change in my image? I'm telling you, you haven't told Capture One where to put these adjustments. So let's click on the pen tool, and I'm going to show you that you can now draw where to add these adjustments. Now this obviously right here would not be done with the pen tool, it would be done with the gradient tool if I just want to apply it to the sky, but actually even now it looks really good. You can paint the gradient right next to the draw mask. There's a gradient mask, so I'm just gonna click and pull it down, and then I would have a soft fading of all the settings I just applied. So now I can fine-tune these settings. I can go up with the exposure a little bit. I can now bring the highlights down, so I can really fine-tune these adjustments with a mask. That's really cool, and I can play with the opacity of the layer as well. So really good feature. Be careful that when you do adjustments on a layer, to go back to the background setting and to always have an eye on whether there's the pen symbol right here next to your tools or not, because then you're editing just one layer and not the whole image. So let's play with this image some more. I'm gonna add another layer and call it street. So I'm gonna paint my mask, and now we're gonna add structure and clarity. I mean, I could do that on the background layer as well. If I apply it to both areas, it's not a big deal, but just for showing you, I'm gonna bring the exposure up for the street, increase contrast, and you can see, I'm doing a screen record and post-production of a raw file at the same time, and trust me, once I turn off the screen record, the raw conversion works way better. So I think you should understand the basics of the layer function. Now, there are very good tools for working with your masks. Now I'm gonna add another layer, call it 1, because I'm gonna work on this little 1 on the street, and I don't want another layer. I want to add a mask, so I'm gonna go to draw mask, then I want to click here and adjust the brush size, make it a little harder, smaller. So now I'm gonna paint in here, and if you want to see your mask while painting, you just press M. M is the mask tool, which helps you to see where you paint. So this is what I'm gonna do right now, and once I get a rough selection of the area that I want to work with, I can now go ahead and do a right click on the layer that I'm working on and select Refine Mask. Let it do its calculations, turn it up a little bit, and you can see now that the mask has been improved a lot. So I'm fine with that. I'm gonna apply the mask, press M to hide the mask, and now I'm gonna add contrast, saturation, and bring the exposure down to really get the focus on the colors on the middle of the street. So that's the way to work with masks, and don't forget to use the mask refine tool. I'm going to show you a magnification of that area so you can see whenever I turn off this layer or turn it back on. It did a really good job with the automatic masking right here. You might also wonder, how do I get a comparison between my original image and my current editing? That's easy. As you can see, every tool has this little arrow to the left. Now if you click that, it will reset your editing for that tool. If you press the Alt button and click on that and hold it, it will show you what it looks like without the layers in this case. Or I'm gonna go back to the background. Let me do an adjustment here. An Alt click on exposure right now will show me just the way it was before, because I did all the editing in my layers. So I could reset that without any issues. If you want to see the original image, you would press the Alt button and click on the arrow up here. Hold your mouse, so everything will be reset, but just until you let go. So that's how you would do your previous and after comparison. You could also do a right click on the thumbnail, click on new variant. This will duplicate the image just like you're used to do that in Lightroom. And now you have two versions and you can put them side by side. So that's the way to check your editing. Not the way you're used to, but it works awesome. Trust me. Now, a basic functionality that you're used to work with in Lightroom is copying settings from one image to another. In Lightroom, they call it synchronized settings. Right here, it's different, but in my opinion, it's better. Now, let's say I have edited this image and I'm done editing. What I want to do now is bring all of my changes to this image. It's easy. Let me show you how to do it. I'm going to select the image I want to copy my settings from. And you can see up here, there's an arrow. As you can see, copy adjustment from primary image. I'm going to select that. Then I'm going to go to the image I want to copy my settings to and click the arrow pointing down. And I'm done. So I have the settings are exactly the same, and that's the way to do it. The difference right here is that you get a clipboard, and that clipboard will save all of your settings that you just copied from the previous file. And you can find the clipboard right here. So you can see that there are certain, some of them are checked and some of them are not checked. So if you say, I don't want to copy the exposure and contrast, you could deselect them here and just paste certain values to another image. I think it won't take you any time to work with that. Next function we need to talk about is exporting, because you do all the adjustments and you want to export. It's just the way it is. So exporting your images is easy. You're gonna click on that little wheel and you can see that there are some predefined so-called process recipes. Now let's go ahead and create a new one. You click plus, give it a name. So something that you need every day is JPEG full size, probably. Now you're going to edit the recipe. So you're going to define how this image should be processed. I'm going to do JPEG quality 100% in sRGB, and I'm going to add the sRGB right into my recipe name, so I always know what kind of color profiles I'm working with. And it's gonna be 300 dpi. It's gonna be a fixed scale, 100%. I don't want to open the image once it's done. You could do certain naming conventions right here, so you could rename your files if you want to. And a really cool thing is that if you cropped your image, you can now decide, do you want to keep that crop or do you want to export it uncropped? So usually you want to respect the crop and export it the way it is currently. You can then choose what kind of metadata you want in your image. I'm going to leave it like that, and you could as well add a watermark. So these are the things you're going to put into your image recipe. Now the funny thing is that you can select multiple recipes at once. So I have this image selected right now, and I have the JPEG web size, which is defined as 800 pixels width, and I have the JPEG full size selected, which is 100%. And you can now decide where these images should go, how they should be named, and you get a summary down there, which will also tell you how big this image is gonna be. So you can see this is gonna be around 17 megabytes, and the web size will be around 88. So once I hit process, Capture One will create 2 files for me, and I don't have to start 2 export actions, because I have selected 2 recipes and they will both be done. So very good thing. And what I would recommend you to do is you would set up your toolbar up here. You would do a right click here, click on Customize Toolbar, and then you can drag and drop whatever you need. And my suggestion is drag the process button in here. Hit done. So whenever I'm working on images, I just want to export one file really quickly, I know I have selected JPEG web size by default. What we're going to do now is we're going to open it with preview just for demonstration purposes. And the cool thing now is that while I'm editing in here, I can just hit that button. Okay, one more thing I need to explain because my queue is stopped. Once I hit that button, let me start my queue again. The image will be processed and opened. So usually I don't like the image to be opened after processing, but I just want to show you right now that it's very easy to create JPEGs or TIFFs or whatever it is with one click. So we are now done, and the image has now been opened. And as you can see, I have 2 of them because I've clicked this button twice. So works wonderful. And the cool thing is that the export process is way better once you get used to it. Alright, while we were talking about exporting files, let me show you another great feature of Capture One 11, and that is the so-called proof, the recipe proof. So whenever I click on that glasses symbol on the upper right, Capture One will process the image the way you selected. So the current process recipe will be displayed. So if I now zoom into the image, I will see that the image is not as detailed as it actually is because I'm displaying the JPEG web size recipe as a preview. So if I deselect that, you can see the detail that the image actually has. That's really cool because whenever I choose to go down in quality, for example, and I want to see if that already creates some artifacts or not, I'm gonna select this one. Then I can see that once I go really low with the JPEG quality, then I can see artifacts starting to show up. So I would increase that and can immediately see if that's a good setting or not. So I don't have to export the image, open it, make adjustments, very cool feature, and I wish Lightroom would have something like that. Well, actually now I don't care because I don't use Lightroom anymore, but yeah, these are the little details that really help you work in a professional way with your RAW converter. And there are so many more, like the tethered shooting is way better in here because you can adjust the aperture and shutter speed and everything right from within Capture One. Not for every camera, but for very many cameras. And you can preview your tethered shooting on the iPad, and it's very good integrated, so you should have a look at all these functions in detail. Capture One provides a sharpness mask. Now you just hit that button over up here, and Capture One will display in green by default the areas which are in focus. So you can then see immediately whether you hit focus or not. So this is obviously also available in full size, but the good thing is if you have multiple images and you want to know where is the focus exactly, it will help you find the images really quickly. And you can see some of them don't even display anything, but that's because the threshold needs to be adjusted, and I haven't done that yet, but right here it's easy to see. Another thing right here, it's the exposure warning. If you turn that on, it will display over and underexposed areas highlighted, so you can now see red is overexposed, and probably I have not set the shadow warning should be enabled. It was disabled, and we're gonna set it to 5. So everything that's darker than 5 is gonna be blue, and everything that's over 250 is gonna be red. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up. If you have any further questions, drop me a comment. There are so many tools in this program. I would suggest get a trial. If you like to get Capture One, then use my promo code. It will give you 10% off. And from now on, you won't have any warmy artifacts in your Fuji RAW files as well. So I'm gonna end this video with a little slideshow from images that I processed in Capture One, and let me know if you're interested in more videos about Capture One, because I received a lot of feedback about this topic, and I also did a video about that on my German channel, and people went crazy about that. Yeah, I think it's a good thing to keep your eyes open to different ways to handle your images, to not be only focused into this one thing. I think it's good. So thanks for watching. Enjoy the images right now. I'm excited to hear about your feedback and your experience with Capture One Pro 11. Have a good day, and don't forget, good images are created outdoors most of the time and not in front of your computer. So take a good picture and make it awesome in your post-production. See ya.